When you wake up the next morning, or afternoon, or night, because time has begun to lose all meaning in these endless, dimly illuminated tunnels, Loki is already on the move, holding you clasped against his chest once more. That was actually kind of nice of him to let me keep sleeping like that, you muse. Or maybe he just didn't want to deal with your conversation. You feeling better? You ask. You figure you might as well suck up to him as much as possible, because you're really starting to get concerned about the whole no food for days thing, and it's looking like Loki has become your meal ticket for the foreseeable future.
Well enough.
Wonderful. He's in a crappy mood again. So, anything I should know? Maybe some background on this alien race we're about to conquer?
You aren't going to do anything, girl. Keep your head down and stay quiet. I'll do the talking.
Message received. You've noticed that the weird, sorcery-induced sweating has stopped. That's a relief. But you're still feeling pretty giddy, and now you're kind of sticky and uncomfortable too. You'd kill for a nice pair of fuzzy pajamas right now, fresh out of the dryer, and a huge, cuddly blanket. And you'd really like to wash your hair too, because you're pretty sure you look disgusting at this point. You certainly feel gross.
We've almost arrived,
Loki says, and your heart skips. What, already? You're about to meet actual living giants. Giants that Loki wants to fight. You definitely aren't mentally prepared to deal with this yet.
Yes. Keep your hood up. We will be outside again soon, and the wind is biting.
He wasn't lying. The moment you emerge from the tunnel, the wind feels like it's trying to tear you to pieces, whipping at your clothes and stinging your eyes. You close them and turn your face to burrow against Loki's chest, which is starting to become something of a safe haven in this bizarre little adventure of yours. Snuggled up against the hot, dangerous alien god's chest is probably not the best place you want to be when you're feeling scared, but emotionally, that's just where you're at right now. Bonding through trauma. Just wait and work it out in therapy. Because right now, you aren't about to give up anything that makes you feel even a little bit better about this whole nightmare. And it really doesn't seem like Loki minds the clinginess either.
Keep your head down,
He reminds you, and you take that literally. Because when you hear the clanking of metal and the sound of rough voices calling out in a language you don't recognize, you tense and press your nose further into the fabric of his tunic. You wonder if you'll ever manage to escape the smell of ice and blood.
Laufey-san.
That sounds familiar, and as you focus your attention, you find that the beings around you have switched to something you can understand. That's interesting. Fascinating, really. How does that work?
Take me to your queen,
Loki says, his tone dripping with an impressive amount of casual arrogance. If he's as worried as you are, he certainly isn't showing it. You feel him striding forward again, and there are some disgruntled mutterings around you. You make out the word mortal, and your panic spikes up a notch or two, as you remember Loki's warning that the frost giants would be more than happy to do terrible things to you. He drops you to your feet, suddenly and without warning, though he catches you by your forearm to keep you upright. You barely have a moment to catch your bearings before he continues, dragging you through a massive entryway into an enormous room that appears to be made entirely of ice. Now you see your welcoming party for the first time, and it's all you can do to not scream. The beings around you seem to range from about 7 to 10 feet tall, and they're all blue, all crimson-eyed, and all incredibly muscular. Soldiers, you realize. You thought Loki large, but he seems incredibly small in comparison to these brutes, whose reactions to your appearance seem to range from amusement to outrage. At the end of the hall sits a large wooden throne, embedded with chips of reflective glass. Or maybe that's ice too. It would hardly be surprising at this point. On the throne sits a woman, incredibly fearsome, but with a striking sort of beauty about her features. Her hair is sleek and black, and she appears to be wearing a cloak with boots, and not much else. She smiles and your skin crawls. Her velvet lips hide bright white teeth, and her eye teeth appear to be filed into sharp points. Or are they naturally that way? You try to glance around without drawing too much attention to yourself, but it seems like only some of the giants have pointy teeth. Loki certainly doesn't. In fact, Loki also doesn't have pointed ears, but the queen and some of the other giants do, and some of them barely have earlobes at all. Okay, keep that curiosity under control. Keep your head down. You can ask him about it later.
Loki, Laufey-san.
One of the soldiers next to you announces, and there are a few gasps and murmurs from the giants mingling in the hall, particularly those lounging about on the steps leading up to the queen's dais. Ah, and so the lost princeling returns to us once more. Farbuati's smile remains on her face, though none of it manages to reach her eyes, and she glances at the smaller giant at her side. He's only a boy, it looks like, and you're guessing that if he were human, he'd be in his teens. Come to see all the destruction you've wrought on your homeworld firsthand, have you?
Actually,
Loki replies, stepping past the soldiers as if he hadn't a care in the world.
I've come to claim my rightful place, Queen Mother. I am the firstborn of the bloodline of Laufey, and I will have my throne.
Her laugh rings out through the hall, and you curse Loki to hell and back in your mind. Is this seriously the best he can do? That is true, Laufey-san, but you've no friends here. Do you have anything besides Laufey's blood to recommend you?
Of course. There is my power, which you can feel, Farbuati, and that is why your heart pounds with fear, because you know I could kill your son where he stands.
The murmur of the crowd cranks up a notch. Damn it, Loki. All he's doing is pissing everyone off. So why aren't they attacking?
And there is my sorcery.
Loki continues, smiling pleasantly.
And my knowledge of the workings of the 9 realms. There is the fact that I was raised to be a king, and that I have many powerful allies across the worlds of Yggdrasil. There's also the fact that I can restore to you the casket of ancient winters, and bring Jotunheim to its former glory. I can bring this realm back from this dark age, Farbuati. What say you to that?
She doesn't look particularly happy about any of it, but there is a calculation in her crimson eyes, as if she's carefully weighing her options.
Unless, of course, you wish for one of your sons to challenge and kill me. That is the only way for the rightful king to be ousted from the throne of Jotunheim, is it not?
Farbuati now seems sullen. We will have to consult with the Valva, of course, as with all great matters of state.
You'll forgive me for saying so, Farbuati, but I must wonder at the practicality of your seeress. Surely, if she were that useful, Laufey would still be alive.
Actually, the queen replies, red eyes glittering with some sort of malevolent mirth. The Valva did warn Laufey that he would die at the hand of his son. He, of course, assumed that meant Helblindi or dear little Bilister. She ruffles the hair of the boy at her side, who remains impressively stone-faced. Everyone thought you dead, Loki Laufey-san, the prodigal firstborn. Loki appears unfazed.
Yet he let them live?
Yes, Laufey always did think he could outplay the Norns.
Consult the vulva, then,
Loki says smoothly, though there is an undercurrent of irritation in his tone.
if that is what custom dictates.
Do not sound so sullen. You should be delighted, Princeling. Perhaps she can tell you more about your wretched mother, as she was also a storm giant. At that, Loki's grip suddenly tightens, his fingers digging into your skin so fiercely that you want to cry out in pain, but you bite your lip instead.
What of my mother?
Oh, the boy does not know. Yet another sin of Odin Allfather.
Get on with it, Farbuati. You test my patience.
Gunlad was a petite little thing, she says disdainfully. Most of the coastal tribes tend to be on the smaller side. Harsher climate, I suppose.
And?
There's no holding back your whimper now, because you're starting to feel like Loki might accidentally snap your arm like a twig, but his grip doesn't loosen. And Laufey, in the height of foolish youthfulness, wedded and bedded a little witch with absolutely no standing whatsoever. It was a complete outrage. Oh God, please, lady, stop talking. Loki's on the verge of exploding. You can practically feel the energy humming off of him. And if he loses it, you don't stand a chance. You already probably don't stand much of a chance. He even refused to take any other consorts or concubines, defying our ancient traditions. And do you know why? Farbuati's fingers curl around the ends of her armrests as she leans forward, eager to deliver the next blow. For love. Imagine that, princeling. It was the seed of that love that destroyed him. Loki actually does a pretty good job of reining himself back in. You suppose thousands of years of being in a royal court must have taught him some manners, even if he never bothers to waste them on you.
If you are quite finished reminiscing over the honored dead, Farbuati, then I would like to be shown to my chambers.
She snorts and leans back in her throne, evidently disappointed by Loki's subdued reaction. Of course, of course. Are you taking that little warm skin with you? Loki almost seems taken aback at the reminder that you're there, despite his vice grip on your arm.
Yes, you know how mortals are. I'd best keep her close at hand.
You're incredibly relieved at that, because no matter how much he absolutely sucks, at least Loki needs you alive. That's more than you can say for the rest of these creatures. Skrymir, the queen calls out to one of the towering brutes at the end of the hall. See to it that the feast hall is prepared so that we may welcome Loki Laufeyson home. Her lip curls around the word rather unpleasantly, and your stomach churns. You really hope Loki knows what he's doing, because you really don't want to get murdered at a giant's feast. It sounds so storybook. It turns out that fairy tales are much more frightening in real life. Skadi, escort our prince to his chambers. One of the women seated at the foot of the throne nods and gracefully rises to her feet. She isn't absurdly tall, though she does stand maybe half a foot over Loki. You feel incredibly tiny and incredibly vulnerable. The giantess brushes long black hair over her shoulder as she leads Loki through the polished hallways, and you're barely able to keep up. In fact, were it not for his bruising grip on your arm, you probably would have fallen onto the icy floor. Laufeyson, she says, and the playfulness in her voice instantly sets you on edge. You mean to take the throne?
The throne is mine for the taking.
Do you suppose the Queen Mother agrees? Skadi's smile is sharp, her white teeth contrasting brightly against her skin.
I trust the Queen Mother will support whatever is best for Jotunheim, which is me taking my rightful place as king.
King Loki, heir of Laufey. The girl seems to mull the title over carefully. Perhaps you will give consideration, future king, to those of us who are loyal to the bloodline. She laughs and tosses her hair again, ushering the two of you into a large room. Well, ushering Loki. She's barely even glanced at you this entire time. The baths are down this hall. There is a stairwell that leads down to the steam pools below the palace. You are welcome to use them at your leisure. Skadi winks. And you will have your women to attend to you, of course, once this whole matter of succession is settled.
Are you so fickle, Skadi, that you will withhold your attentions unless I wear the crown?
I'm sworn to the king of Jotunheim, and you, Loki Laufeyson, are not king yet. She smirks as she turns to leave, her hips swaying in a way that is obviously supposed to be seductive. You're really starting to dislike this chick. Loki waves a hand and the doorway seals shut behind her. It's ice, you realize, a magically formed chunk of solid ice. Great, so that's a no on sneaking out in the middle of the night then. Not that you had anywhere to go anyway. There's an amused sort of smile on his face, and it twists and scratches at your temper. So, you begin snidely, you're gonna try and sleep with Smurfette, huh? He lets out a short bark of laughter.
Consider it a good sign, mortal. If Skadi thought my claim to the throne invalid, she would not try so brazenly to capture my attention.
You snort.
Mind your manners. If you act this way in front of the Yogna, I will have to discipline you. You do not want to be disciplined, do you?
No.
No, master.
What?
Perhaps you've forgotten my threat to muzzle you if you keep up this horrific shrieking of yours.
Loki says, but you can see that he isn't angry. No, he looks incredibly pleased with himself, now that everything seems to be going according to his plan. If this was according to plan, you're still not entirely certain that he isn't just making it up as he goes along. You decide that it's best not to argue, for the time being at least. Not while you're scared and starving and relying on a worryingly attractive, temperamental alien for survival. Instead, you survey your surroundings. The room you're now in is odd. The outer walls seem to be made of some sort of bluish-gray stone, while the inner walls are a dark, opaque ice. Must make for easier renovating. You congratulate yourself for maintaining some semblance of humor during this whole ordeal. There's a massive bed in the corner. Well, something like a bed at least. It's a platform carved out of stone itself, covered in layer upon layer of blankets, skins, and furs. You've yet to see anything furry on this godforsaken planet, and these humongous pelts aren't exactly good for your nerves. Fantastic. They've probably got some sort of freaky mutant polar bears for pets here. Your reluctant savior takes notice of your gaze, though he misinterprets the reason for your angst.
You are going to be sleeping there, with me. You might as well get used to the idea.
That's great. Now you have something else to freak out about. Somehow the idea of crawling into an actual bed with him seems much more serious than the last few nights of snuggling in the caves to survive. How about I just take the floor?
Mortal, you're going to have much less bravado when the potion finally wears off and the cold truly begins to settle into your bones.
Your heart drops. It's gonna wear off?
Of course. Nothing lasts forever. And even if I do spare some of my power to charm you, you are still going to be very, very uncomfortable here.
Fan-freaking-tastic.
I need you to listen very carefully to me, and heed my words. When we are among the frost giants, speak only when spoken to, and act as demure and obedient as possible. It'll make your time here far more pleasant.
All right, you mumble. Loki stares at you, brows lifted expectantly. I'm not gonna say it.
Master or sire are your options, mortal. Choose your poison.
All right, sire. You snap. At least that one sounds a little less degrading.
Wonderful. You are learning so quickly.
The sarcasm makes you scowl, but you keep your mouth shut. Keep your head down. Survive. That's all that matters. There's a scraping sound as Loki opens the ice door again, and he beckons you forward.
Come along,
He says, a worryingly mischievous smile on his face.
let us bathe.